There's a moment when silence speaks louder than any scream. When detachment isn't a retreat, but a quiet revolution. You feel them slip away. Maybe they ghost you. Maybe they just grow cold. And while every nerve in your body wants to chase, explain, fix, there's a deeper power in staying still, in watching and waiting. In this video, we dive into a Stoic truth that rattles the very core of modern relationship dynamics: the strength of detachment. Not indifference, not passive aggression, but a calm, collected, grounded confidence that refuses to crumble when someone else withdraws. If you've ever been the one left behind, confused, desperate for answers, this is for you. You'll learn how to stay centered when someone drifts, how to reverse the dynamic by doing less, not more, and why the strongest move is sometimes no move at all. Before we begin, if you value this kind of grounded, stoic reflection in your life, consider subscribing to the channel, not just because it helps us grow, but because it aligns you with a path that favors inner strength over outer chaos. And if this video speaks to something you've lived through, leave a comment later on. I'll be reading. Now take a deep breath. Relax your shoulders. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The sting of their departure. There's a peculiar kind of silence that settles when someone walks away. Not just physically, but emotionally. They stop texting as much. The tone changes. You start to notice delays in replies, missed calls, or that unmistakable disinterest in their voice. And you feel it, like a slow leak in the soul. The warmth is gone, replaced by cold ambiguity. It's not a breakup, it's a fade out. And that in many ways hurts even more, because with a clean break, there's a line. But when someone just starts to drift, it messes with your mind. You question everything. Was I too much? Was I not enough? Did I say something wrong? And before you know it, you're no longer living in the present. You're living in rewinds. Scenes replay in your head with surgical precision. Every smile, every kiss, every moment of closeness becomes data in a hopeless forensic investigation of why they're now slipping away. But here's the thing. This sting is not just about them. It's about you. About your attachment to what was, to the idea of permanence in a world that promises none. The Stoics taught us not to anchor our peace to things outside our control. And yet most of our emotional pain begins exactly there. In the illusion that we should have control over another's affection, attention, or when they leave or fade, your ego flinches. It panics. It begs you to do something. Send that message. Get closure. Make them remember. And if they still don't come back, it spirals. You lose sleep. You lose clarity. And worst of all, you start to lose yourself. But what if I told you that this sting, this heartache, this sudden absence is not a curse, but an invitation? An invitation to meet the parts of yourself you've ignored. An opportunity to detach, not from love, but from the illusion that someone else must stay in order for you to be whole. The pain of someone leaving is real. It's raw, but it's not permanent, and it is not by any measure proof that you are unworthy. Most people flee not because you lack value, but because they never truly understood it. Or worse, because your presence triggered a depth they weren't ready to explore. Detachment begins when you stop personalizing their exit. When you see that someone walking away says more about them than it does about you. Maybe they feared intimacy. Maybe they didn't know how to match your depth. Maybe they were simply in a season of life that couldn't carry the weight of real connection. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. They're gone or going. And now the only question left is, what do you do with that void? Some chase, others collapse. But the Stoic chooses something different. He sits with the emptiness, he stares into the silence, and he listens, not to the fading echoes of someone else's footsteps, but to his own breath, his own stillness, his own unshaken essence. Because true detachment isn't pretending not to care. It's caring deeply, but not allowing that care to steal your peace. You can love them, miss them, even cry for them, but you don't beg, you don't plead, you don't perform. You become like the sea, vast, grounded, undisturbed by the ships that sail away. Now I want to ask you something. If you've ever experienced this kind of slow departure, this quiet heartbreak, share your reflection in the comments. What helped you navigate the void? What held you together? Let others learn from your strength. Chapter 2. Why they drift and how to shift it. There's an old truth we often forget when emotions run high. People don't always leave because of something you did. They leave because of how they feel around you. Not just when it's good, but when the mirror of closeness reflects back something they're not ready to see in themselves. It's easy to assume they drift because you weren't enough. But often, the truth is far more layered. People pull back when the connection becomes real, when their wounds are exposed, when the weight of vulnerability becomes heavier than their willingness to carry it. They may crave intimacy but fear what it reveals. They may like the comfort of your presence but feel overwhelmed by the responsibility it implies. In many cases, their drift isn't a judgment of your worth, it's a reaction to their own discomfort. The human heart is unpredictable. It flinches from closeness just as much as it yearns for it. And so, someone might draw near, feel the warmth of your steady presence, and then suddenly grow cold. Not because you did anything wrong, but because the temperature of their own fear rose too quickly. But here's where the Stoic stands apart from the average soul. He doesn't chase clarity where there is none. He doesn't demand answers that the other isn't equipped to give. He recognizes the drift for what it is. Not a rejection, but a revelation. Still, while detachment asks us not to chase, it doesn't mean we abandon awareness. There's power in observing patterns. There's wisdom in recognizing red flags, not to accuse, but to understand. When someone begins to pull away, don't immediately fill the silence with your own noise. Don't overcompensate. Don't rush in with questions, confessions, or desperation. That only affirms their fear that closeness equals pressure. Instead, shift the energy. Pull back. Not as punishment, but as balance. Reclaim your center. Pour your presence into your purpose. Let your absence speak volumes. Not as a weapon, but as a mirror. When they feel your silence, they begin to hear their own thoughts more clearly. And sometimes, that's exactly what they need to process at the connection. Paradoxically, by not reacting, you become more impactful. You're no longer clinging to the illusion of control. You're embodying strength through surrender. And that is magnetic. You shift the dynamic not through persuasion, but through posture. A calm, dignified presence that doesn't flinch at rejection, that doesn't shrink in the face of silence, that doesn't abandon self-worth for temporary comfort. Ask yourself this: if someone is unsure about you, would you rather convince them or let them face the silence long enough to choose you? Real attraction isn't forced. It emerges when both people feel safe being themselves. And that safety can't be built on constant chasing. It has to grow in the space between desire and detachment. Now, here's something I'd love for you to share in the comments below. Have you ever noticed someone come closer when you stopped reaching? What changed in you or in them when you shifted your energy? Let's talk about it. Chapter 3. The Power of Quiet Withdrawal. There is a moment in every imbalance when the soul begins to tilt too far towards someone else. You notice it in your tone, softer than it should be, in your responses, quicker than theirs, in your mind constantly orbiting their presence, their attention, their next move. You think you're just being caring, just being available, but inside something sacred is bleeding out. Your energy, your value, your sense of centeredness. That's when quiet withdrawal becomes not just wise, it becomes essential. Quiet withdrawal is not an act of spite. It is not punishment. It is not a sulking protest staged in emotional silence. No. Quiet withdrawal is a conscious recalibration, a return to equilibrium. When a connection begins to erode your own dignity, it is how you honor your worth when someone else no longer does. You do not announce it. You do not explain it. You do not perform it on a stage for them to see and applaud. You simply stop feeding what is no longer reciprocal. You stop watering what has stopped growing. You stop trying to be heard in an echo chamber of disinterest. Too often, we are taught that silence means weakness, that stepping back means surrender. But the Stoic knows otherwise. He knows that silence can be a sword, that stepping back can be a stand, that detachment, when rooted in self-respect, is not the absence of love, it is the presence of boundaries. So what does this look like? In practice, it's subtle. You respond when necessary, but you no longer initiate. You listen. But you no longer bend your truth to avoid discomfort. You show up for yourself before you show up for them. And slowly, your silence begins to speak louder than your words ever did. They may not notice at first. They may even interpret your distance as disinterest. But what they don't understand is that your quiet is not indifference. It's clarity. It's you choosing peace over pretense. It's you refusing to entertain connections that ask you to dim your light just to keep their interest. And eventually, something shifts. Not always, but often. They begin to feel the absence of your warmth. They miss the steadiness you offered. They revisit the conversations you used to spark. And whether they reach out or not, that's not your concern. What matters is that you have reclaimed your power not by force, but by presence, not by attack, but by absence. Quiet withdrawal also frees you. It clears space. It creates silence, not only for them to notice what's gone, but for you to hear what remains. Without their noise, their inconsistency, their mixed signals, you start to hear your own voice again. You remember what you enjoy, what you need, what you value. You return to your own rhythm. This is not emotional manipulation. This is not a game. This is restoration. A sacred pause. A refusal to dance to a beat that was never yours to begin with. The power of quiet withdrawal is that it disrupts the pattern. Most people expect either confrontation or compliance. But when you withdraw without drama, you confuse the narrative. They are left to fill in the silence themselves. And in that silence, many things are revealed. Not just about you, but about them. Do they reach? Do they reflect? Do they dismiss? Do they spiral? You will learn more in your absence than you ever did in your presence. But here's the crucial part. Your withdrawal must not be performative. You do not do it to provoke a reaction. You do it because it's the next right move for your peace. If they come back and you welcome them, it is with new terms, new clarity, new alignment. And if they do not, well, then they were never really there to begin with. So many people stay in emotional limbo because they fear what will happen if they step back. But the truth is, nothing shifts until you shift. Nothing changes until you reclaim the tone of your own emotional music. You must become comfortable with your own stillness. You must become proud of your own solitude. You must become immune to the false urgency of making others comfortable while your soul is starving for air. The power of quiet withdrawal is not just in how it affects them. It is in how it restores you. It gives you back your time, your mental energy, your emotional stability. It sharpens your focus. It rewrites your story, and in time, it transforms how others experience you. Not as someone who is always available, always reaching, always explaining, but as someone who chooses themselves when others hesitate. Have you ever practiced this kind of quiet withdrawal? What happened when you did? Let your story be the torch someone else needs. Share it in the comments. Chapter 4. When they start to notice. Detachment is a silent revolution. You don't announce it. You don't post about it. You don't send long-winded explanations that start with "I just think it's funny how." No, you simply pull back, quietly, steadily, and the world around you begins to shift. Not all at once, but subtly, unmistakably. At first they don't notice. The messages you stopped sending, the calls you didn't make, the energy you no longer poured out without return. It all seems to go unnoticed, and that's when doubt creeps in. You wonder if it's working, if they ever really valued your presence, if your silence even registers on their radar. But stay the course, because detachment works slowly, like ink seeping into cloth, invisible at first, until suddenly it's undeniable. One day, they pause before posting something. One night, they scroll through old messages. One quiet moment, they remember the steadiness you once brought. And then, they know they may not reach out right away, or ever, but they feel it. The energy has changed. The comfort they once had in your availability has evaporated. You're no longer orbiting them, like a moon desperate for gravity. You've become your own sun. This is the paradox of emotional absence. When you were always there, they felt no urgency, no mystery, no contrast. But now that you've stepped back, their comfort becomes discomfort. Their confidence becomes confusion. They start to wonder, where did you go? It's important here not to gloat. This isn't about winning. It's about clarity. About finally seeing what was real and what was routine. When someone begins to notice your absence, it tells you one thing. They had grown used to your presence, and whether or not they appreciated it while you were close. That's where the real truth lies. When they start to notice, they may test the waters. A casual message, a meme, a like on an old photo. These are breadcrumbs, not full efforts. Don't mistake them for commitment. They are feeling out your energy, checking if you're still where they left you. And your task is simple. Don't be. You are no longer the person who waits by the door of half-love. You are no longer the soul who dances for crumbs. If they want to return, let them walk. Let them reach. Let them earn the access that was once freely given. And if they do come back, be cautious. The fact that they notice you're gone does not mean they've grown. It only means they miss what was easy, what was soothing. True transformation takes time. And so does trust. There's something sacred about being missed. But don't confuse being missed with being chosen. One is about them, the other is about you. You may also find that their noticing isn't loud. It doesn't come with grand gestures or heartfelt apologies. It may show up in small shifts, more eye contact, longer replies, delayed exits from conversations. You'll feel it in the subtle tension of their presence. The silence now speaks volumes, and so do the pauses. This is the point where many people crumble. When the one who once drifted begins to reappear, the temptation is to rush in, to rebuild what was lost. But the Stoic resists that urge. He remains grounded. He observes. He listens, not just to their words, but to their patterns, their effort, their consistency. Because the question is not, do they miss me? The question is, what have they done with that feeling? When they start to notice, they are presented with a mirror. And in that mirror, they must decide, do they step up or do they drift again? Your role is not to make that choice for them. Your role is to remain rooted in your own self-worth, unmoved by their sudden curiosity. You are not a station waiting for their return. You are a journey they must choose to walk alongside or not at all. And if they never notice, if your absence goes forever unanswered, then you've learned a powerful truth. You were pouring into a well with no bottom, and the courage it took to step back has freed you from that endless emptiness. Now let me ask you, have you ever had someone slowly start to notice your absence? What did they do? And more importantly, how did you respond? I'd love to hear your reflections in the comments. Chapter 5. Their test and your response. When someone starts to drift and then notices your absence, they don't always come back with clarity. More often, they come back with questions. Some spoken, most not. They send a feeler, a vague message, a memory wrapped in sarcasm, a lazy, "Hey stranger." You might not recognize it for what it is at first, but make no mistake, they are testing you. Testing whether the door is still cracked open. Testing whether your energy is still theirs to sample. Testing whether the comfort they lost is still sitting on the shelf, undusted, waiting for their return. This is not inherently malicious. It is in fact deeply human. People are not always self-aware enough to articulate their own motives. They rarely say, "I miss your presence, but I'm unsure I want to commit." Instead, they speak in half measures. They poke at the surface. They act casual while their spirit probes the energy. This is the moment of truth for you, because it's tempting, so tempting to take the bait, to see that message or call, glance and think they're back. They care. It meant something after all. And maybe it did. But if you rush in, if you fall into old patterns, you'll miss the real test. They're not just testing you. Life is testing you. This is your invitation to respond, not react. There's a vast difference. Reaction is quick, emotional, automatic. It's replying in seconds, fueled by relief, fear, or hunger. It's calling them immediately. It's abandoning your quiet progress for the sound of old familiar footsteps. But response is calm, deliberate, measured. It pauses, it breathes, it observes, it lets time unfold before revealing anything. It considers not just what you want, but what you need. Remember, this is not about playing games. It's not about who can stay silent longer, or who can win the battle of who cares less. That's ego, and the Stoic path is not about ego. It's about alignment. It's about integrity. It's about choosing peace over performance. So how do you respond to their test? First, ask yourself, what do you actually want from this person? Is it clarity, commitment, closure, or are you just craving the return of their attention? Because it made you feel validated. Be honest with yourself. Radically honest. Because if what you're seeking cannot actually be given by them, then their return is not a gift. It's a distraction. Second, assess their effort. A breadcrumb is not a loaf. A casual text is not a confession. A moment of curiosity is not a change of heart. Are they truly reaching out with intention? Or are they just checking to see if the door still swings the same way? Third, match their energy, not their words. Words lie, patterns don't. If they are vague, you remain grounded. If they are slow, you stay steady. If they are distant, you stay focused on your own lane. Do not rush to fill silence. Do not try to impress, simply be. This is how you pass the test. Not by saying the perfect thing, but by doing the powerful thing. Staying rooted in self-respect. When they test, they expect old you. The one who gave too much, who responded too fast, who made excuses, who made space even when they didn't earn it. And when they find that version of you is no longer available, the game changes. They may retreat again. Let them. That's not rejection. It's filtration. You're filtering out the ones who don't align with your new standard. Or they may step up, realizing the gravity of what they once took lightly. Let them. But only if their actions match their interest. You are no longer seeking people who just notice you. You are seeking those who understand your worth and act accordingly. Now I'd like to hear from you. Have you ever been tested like this? What was your response? Did you pass or did you learn something deeper? Share your moment in the comments. Let your wisdom be a guide for someone else walking the same path. Chapter 6. The bold move of letting go. To let go is to defy one of the most primal instincts in the human heart, to hold on, even when the grip draws blood. We are taught to fight for what we love, to chase what we lose, to fix what is broken. And there is beauty in that endurance, until it becomes bondage, until it becomes a slow suffocation of the soul. The bold move, then, is not to cling. It is to release, to let go, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in strength. Quiet, formidable, unwavering strength. Letting go does not mean you never cared. It means you cared enough to know that love without reciprocity is a wound that never heals. It means you saw the truth clearly enough to stop lying to yourself. It means you honored your time, your peace, your future more than the familiar ache of what once was. But make no mistake, letting go is not passive. It is not simply walking away. It is a deeply active process. It is a reorientation of your entire emotional compass. It is choosing, moment by moment, to release the what-ifs, the if-onlys, the could-have-beens. It is learning to sit with the echoes without trying to make them speak again. And in doing so, you reclaim the most sacred thing you own, your freedom. The world will often tell you to fight harder, to prove your worth, to make them see. But the Stoic sees beyond that noise. He understands that not every fight is noble. Some are distractions in disguise. And sometimes the most courageous act is to walk away. Not because you gave up, but because you woke up. Letting go is also not about forgetting. It is about remembering without pain. It is about turning a chapter, not pretending it never existed. It is about extracting the lesson, not erasing the experience. You might wonder, How do I know when it's time to let go? The answer is simple. When your peace costs more than their presence is worth. If every interaction leaves you anxious, if every conversation feels like a negotiation of your worth, if you are more confused than calm, more drained than nourished, then the price is too high, and you are not obligated to bankrupt yourself for someone who does not invest in you. Letting go is also not done all at once. It happens in layers, in mornings where you don't check your phone, in nights where you no longer fantasize about reconciliation, in moments where you hear their name and fed nothing. You will grieve. You will resist. You will wonder if you made the right call. But over time, you will feel lighter, not because the love is gone, but because the weight of waiting has been lifted. The bold move of letting go also changes how you carry yourself. You begin to speak differently. You move with a confidence that doesn't need validation. You stop auditioning for affection. You realize that your value was never up for debate. It was only ever up to you to embody. And strangely enough, that is when people notice. That is when they remember. That is when they return. Not always, but often. But this time you are no longer waiting. You've moved on. Not to spite them, but to honor you. You are not cold. You are not heartless. You are whole. And that wholeness becomes your shield. Letting go is bold because it flies in the face of everything the world has taught you about worth. But once you do it, once you truly embrace it, you find something astonishing waiting on the other side. Clarity. A peace that no person can give or take. A strength that grows in silence. A path that leads inward and upward. If you are standing on the edge of this decision, I offer you this reflection. The love you are willing to give yourself will always be the blueprint for the love you receive from others. So tell me, have you ever made the bold move to let go? What pushed you over the edge? And what did you discover about yourself afterward? Leave a comment below. Someone out there needs your strength. Chapter 7. The Stoic Way to Stay Unshaken. There's a certain silence that falls when you stop needing to be understood. When you let go of the urge to correct, to prove, to justify your value to someone who couldn't see it. That silence is stoicism in motion. Not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of it. Not detachment from the world, but calm participation in it. To stay unshaken is not to deny emotion. It is to contain it with strength, to walk through the fire and not become it. To hear the insult and not carry it. To feel the tension in the room and remain steady in your breath. In a world that thrives on reactivity, the Stoic is rare. He is not numb. He is composed. He is not indifferent. He is selective. He feels the same things others do. The sting of rejection, the ache of uncertainty, the longing for closeness. But he processes these things internally, quietly, without allowing them to disturb his direction. When the person you once cared for begins to notice your shift, they may push, they may test, they may throw emotional bait. They may accuse you of being distant, cold, or cruel. They are trying to shake your resolve, not always consciously, but certainly instinctively. And it's here that the Stoic way becomes your shield. You do not respond from the wound. You respond from wisdom. When they raise their voice, you lower yours or say nothing at all. When they throw confusion, you bring clarity, not in your words but in your presence. When they try to guilt you back into the role you've outgrown, you stand firm, not to punish them, but to honor yourself. The world teaches you that strength looks loud, aggressive, boastful. But true strength, Stoic strength, is quiet, humble, undeniable. It does not demand recognition. It commands respect by simply existing. There's an ancient power in restraint. When you feel the emotion rise, and instead of unleashing it, you witness it, hold it, dissect it, you realize, this feeling is not me. It is passing through me. And just like a storm, it will move on if I do not become it. The Stoic does not avoid love, nor does he scoff at heartbreak. He simply refuses to be ruled by either. His heart is open, but not exposed. His peace is guarded, not because he fears connection, but because he values discernment. And perhaps the greatest Stoic move of all is not speaking when silence will do, not acting when presence is enough, not chasing when standing still reveals all truths. Let others speculate. Let them misinterpret. Let them throw labels. Your role is not to manage their perceptions. It is to remain unmoved by them. When you stop needing to be right, you become unshakable. When you stop needing them to feel sorry, you become free. When you stop trying to impress or explain or earn, you become enough. And that is when they realize the version of you they tried to fit into their limited frame no longer exists. You've transcended the dynamic. You've outgrown the pattern, and you've become something both rare and magnetic, calm in the chaos, anchored in the storm, and powerful in your stillness. If you've ever had to practice this kind of inner restraint, where your silence carried more power than any speech, share what that felt like in the comments. Your calm might just inspire someone else's. Chapter 8. They regret as you thrive. Regret is a quiet visitor. It arrives not in the middle of your withdrawal, but long after, when the dust has settled. When you've moved on, when your energy no longer orbits their mood, their messages, their whims, that's when it hits them, that you're gone. Not in the dramatic sense, not blocked or erased, but transformed. You've grown. You've evolved. You've found laughter again, light again, joy that isn't tied to their presence. And the space they once took for granted is now occupied by purpose, passion, and peace. And so, regret creeps in. It's not always dramatic. Often, it's subtle. A story they see with you smiling. A comment you leave on someone else's post that radiates confidence. A casual interaction where you're different, calmer, lighter, less hungry for their attention. And in that shift, they feel the gap, the empty echo of something they once held but failed to handle. They begin to compare. The person they meet now doesn't make them feel the way you did. The laughter is hollow. The conversations are shallow. The connection is safe, but not deep. And suddenly the contrast becomes unbearable, because your presence wasn't just comforting, it was challenging, soulful, rare. Regret doesn't just come from loss. It comes from the realization that what was lost may never return. But here's the beauty of the Stoic path. You do not thrive to be regretted. You thrive because you were always meant to. Their realization is not your reward. It's simply a byproduct of your transformation. You did not rise to make them miss you. You rose because you remembered who you were before you forgot yourself in their shadow. As they linger in what-ifs, you step into what's next. As they analyze, you actualize. As they scroll, you are no longer waiting for closure. Because you gave it to yourself, you're no longer waiting to be chosen. Because you chose you. And yes, sometimes they come back. Sometimes regret turns into action. They reach out, they apologize, they want another chance. But by then, your standard has risen. Your pace has changed. Your energy is no longer accessible at the same cost. That's the paradox. They want the version of you they remember, but you've become someone else. Someone better, not bitter, not closed, but wiser, with boundaries, with clarity, with a life so full. There's no room for what once drained you. Let them regret. Let them reflect. That's theirs to carry. Your role is not to rescue them from that realization. Your role is to remain aligned, to keep moving forward, to keep looming. Because here's the truth. The best revenge is no revenge at all. It's living so well, so richly, so deeply rooted in who you are, that nothing from the past can hold a candle to your present. If you've ever seen this unfold, someone realizing too late what they lost, how did it feel? Did you let them back in, or did you walk forward with grace? Share your story below. Your evolution deserves to be witnessed. Conclusion: detachment is not the end of feeling. It is the beginning of sovereignty, of choosing to hold your center no matter how the world shifts around you, of stepping back, not because you no longer care, but because you care too much to stay where you're not valued. You've now seen what it means to be still while others waver, to be calm while they test, to be strong in your silence and magnetic in your growth. You've learned that letting go is not weakness, it's wisdom. That regret is not your fuel, but a fire they must tend on their own. And most importantly, you've remembered this. You do not need to chase what cannot see your worth. You need only to become so undeniably aligned with your value that others feel the loss, not because you punished them, but because they underestimated your power. If this video resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, not for me, for you. Because every week we walk deeper into the calm, the clarity, and the quiet confidence that Stoicism offers in a chaotic world. And if a particular chapter stirred something in you, let me know in the comments. Whether you've been tested, let go, or simply grown, this is your space to reflect. This community isn't just here to listen, it's here to walk with you. Until next time, stay grounded, stay strong, and let your silence speak for you.